Welcome to True Crime Talks, where we dive into the darkest and most shocking stories. Today we uncover a tale of obsession, betrayal, and tragedy that will leave you questioning the consequences of desire. Jenna Campbell was a bright and ambitious 28-year-old marketing executive in a bustling metropolitan city. Known for her dedication to her job, Jenna spent long hours in the office, often foregoing weekends and social events to climb the corporate ladder. Her colleagues admired her work ethic, but they also noticed how focused she remained on maintaining a professional image. Jenna had a steady boyfriend, Lucas, and often spoke about their plans for the future. To most people, her life seemed perfectly put together. Everything started to shift the day Aaron Steele walked into the office. Aaron was the newest addition to the marketing team, a 31-year-old with an irresistible charm and a magnetic smile. He had a way of commanding attention without trying, and it wasn't long before the entire office was buzzing about him. Jenna initially paid little attention, chalking up the excitement to the arrival of someone new. But Aaron's energy was hard to ignore. He had a natural charisma that drew people in, and his confidence was as captivating as it was intimidating. Jenna and Aaron were paired together on a high-stakes campaign shortly after his arrival. The project required long hours of collaboration and constant communication. Their working dynamic quickly became seamless, with each of them complementing the other's strengths. Jenna found herself impressed by Aaron's creativity and ability to remain calm under pressure. Aaron, in turn, openly praised Jenna's organizational skills and innovative thinking, which flattered her in ways she hadn't expected. At first, their interactions were entirely professional, with little to suggest anything more than mutual respect. But as the days turned into weeks, subtle shifts in their dynamic began to emerge. Aaron had a way of making everyone feel special, but with Jenna, there seemed to be something different. Whether it was the lingering eye contact during meetings or the way his compliments felt more personal, Jenna couldn't deny the growing chemistry between them. Their closeness didn't go unnoticed by their colleagues, who began to tease them about being the office's power duo. Jenna laughed off the comments, reminding everyone that she was happily committed to Lucas. Still, she couldn't ignore the thrill she felt when Aaron was around. She told herself it was nothing more than professional admiration, a natural consequence of working so closely with someone so talented. The turning point came during a late-night brainstorming session. With most of the office already empty, Jenna and Aaron found themselves sharing personal stories about their lives. For the first time, Jenna saw a more vulnerable side of Aaron, and it made him seem even more magnetic. What started as a purely professional connection had taken a step into something more ambiguous. Jenna tried to dismiss it, but deep down she knew her feelings for Aaron were no longer entirely innocent. The turning point came during an out-of-town conference, where Jenna and Aaron were part of a small team representing their company. The conference was a high-pressure event, with back-to-back presentations, networking sessions, and meetings that left everyone feeling exhausted. By the end of the first day, the team decided to unwind at a nearby bar. It was a lively place filled with music and laughter, and for the first time in weeks, Jenna felt a sense of relief from the mounting stress. As the group settled in, Aaron naturally took center stage. His charisma had the same magnetic effect on strangers as it did on their coworkers. Jenna watched as he effortlessly charmed everyone around him, from the bartender to the conference attendees who had joined their table. Despite her attempts to focus on casual conversations with other colleagues, Jenna couldn't help but notice the way Aaron's attention kept drifting back to her. The atmosphere grew more relaxed as the hours passed. One by one, their colleagues called it a night, leaving just Jenna and Aaron at the table. For a moment, Jenna considered leaving too, but Aaron suggested taking a walk to explore the city. It seemed innocent enough, and Jenna told herself there was no harm in enjoying the evening with a coworker. They strolled through the city's vibrant streets, the night illuminated by glowing storefronts and streetlights. Their conversation shifted from work to more personal topics. Jenna found herself opening up about her life with Lucas, the frustrations, the stagnation, and the way their relationship felt more like an obligation than a partnership. Aaron, in turn, shared his own experiences with heartbreak and the challenges of balancing ambition with personal relationships. Their laughter echoed through the quiet streets as they shared stories and jokes. For the first time in a long while, Jenna felt understood in a way that Lucas hadn't made her feel in years. Aaron seemed to listen with an attentiveness that was both comforting and thrilling. As they reached the hotel, a moment of hesitation hung between them. Jenna felt the weight of the unspoken tension, but she quickly excused herself and retreated to her room. Alone, she wrestled with a surge of conflicting emotions. The excitement of the evening was undeniable, but so was the guilt. She told herself it was just a one-time experience, a fleeting moment of connection. Back home, Jenna tried to bury the memory of that night and refocus on Lucas and her responsibilities. But Aaron's presence at work made it impossible. Every glance, every shared smile, and every seemingly casual interaction served as a reminder of their shared secret. The boundary between professionalism and personal attraction had been crossed, and Jenna realized she was on dangerous ground. Months later, Jenna and Aaron's secret affair had become a regular occurrence. What began as an exhilarating escape from her mundane routine had evolved into something far more complicated. The once thrilling secrecy now felt like a heavy burden, as Jenna lived in constant fear of being discovered. The thrill that had drawn her to Aaron in the first place was quickly overshadowed by the overwhelming sense of guilt she carried. She still loved Lucas, or at least she told herself she did, but her betrayal loomed over her like a dark cloud. Aaron, on the other hand, seemed to thrive in the midst of their covert relationship. He was no longer just the charming coworker who had captivated Jenna's attention. He had become possessive and demanding. What Jenna initially perceived as passion now felt stifling. Aaron wanted more of her time, more of her attention, and more of her life than she was willing or able to give. At work, their interactions became harder to hide. Aaron's behavior grew bolder, and Jenna noticed the occasional knowing glance from their colleagues. Though no one said anything outright, the subtle shift in the office atmosphere was undeniable. Jenna began to dread coming into work, knowing that every day she was walking a tightrope, balancing her professional reputation and personal life on the brink of collapse. Meanwhile, Lucas was growing suspicious. He had always trusted Jenna, but lately her excuses for staying late at work and her distant demeanor had raised red flags. One evening, Lucas decided to surprise her at the office, bringing along dinner as a gesture of goodwill. What he found, however, was far from comforting. On Jenna's desk lay a small note in Aaron's handwriting, playful and flirty, unmistakably personal. Lucas didn't confront Jenna immediately. Instead, he began to observe her more closely, piecing together the subtle clues she thought she had hidden so well. Over the next few days, he scrolled through her social media accounts, checked her phone when she left it unattended, and paid closer attention to her comings and goings. Each discovery pointed to the unthinkable: Jenna was having an affair. At the same time, Aaron's behavior continued to escalate. His once romantic texts became obsessive, and he frequently demanded to know where Jenna was and who she was with. He began to imply that their relationship was more than just an affair, that it was something worth fighting for, even if it meant drastic measures. Jenna felt trapped. The excitement she once felt had turned into a nightmare. Her relationship with Lucas was crumbling, her reputation at work was on the line, and Aaron's increasing intensity was becoming harder to ignore. She knew she was running out of time before everything came crashing down. One evening, Jenna decided it was time to end things with Aaron. The weight of their affair had become unbearable, and her life was unraveling faster than she could control. She felt trapped between the guilt of betraying Lucas, the growing anxiety of being discovered, and the suffocating presence of Aaron, whose once charming demeanor had morphed into something far darker. She arranged to meet Aaron at a quiet coffee shop after work. Sitting across from him at a small corner table, she struggled to find the right words. Her hands trembled as she explained that their affair had to stop. She spoke about the damage it was causing and her need to salvage what was left of her relationship with Lucas. But as the words left her mouth, Aaron's face shifted from disbelief to anger. Aaron accused her of leading him on and using him for her own selfish needs. His voice was low but filled with venom, and his eyes burned with a mix of hurt and fury. Jenna tried to remain calm, reiterating her decision and making it clear that this was the end. But Aaron wasn't willing to accept it. He warned her that she couldn't just walk away, not after everything they had been through together. Frightened by his intensity, Jenna abruptly left the coffee shop, her heart pounding as she hurried to her car. She thought about calling Lucas to tell him everything, but fear held her back. Instead, she went home and tried to convince herself that Aaron's threats were empty words spoken in the heat of the moment. But deep down, she knew better. The days that followed were a blur of anxiety and paranoia. Aaron began sending her relentless messages, at first pleading for another chance, then turning to threats when she didn't respond. He made cryptic comments about knowing where she lived and how she'd regret ending things. Jenna blocked his number, but the fear of what he might do consumed her. She started looking over her shoulder everywhere she went, unable to shake the feeling that she was being watched. Meanwhile, Lucas, still reeling from his discovery of Jenna's betrayal, decided to confront her. One evening, he waited for her to return home, his emotions boiling over. When she walked through the door, Lucas demanded answers. The argument that followed was intense and emotional, with Jenna breaking down and confessing everything. She begged for forgiveness, promising to cut ties with Aaron completely. Though Lucas agreed to try and work through their issues, the trust between them was shattered. Jenna felt the weight of her actions more acutely than ever, but the worst was yet to come. Aaron, enraged by her rejection, was planning his next move, a decision that would forever change their lives. A week later, Jenna's worst fears came true. It started as an ordinary evening. She had finished work late and was driving home through the quiet streets, her mind still tangled with the stress of the past few days. As she approached a stoplight, she glanced in her rearview mirror and froze. A car was following her, driving too closely for comfort. At first, she thought it was just another driver impatient to get home, but when the car kept tailing her turn after turn, panic set in. She recognized the car. It was Aaron's. Jenna's heart began to race as she tried to maintain control. She took a sharp turn, hoping to lose him in the maze of side streets, but Aaron matched her move effortlessly. Every time she sped up, his car did the same. She could feel his presence looming behind her like a predator. Her hands gripped the steering wheel, her mind racing for a solution, but there was no escaping him. As Jenna's anxiety soared, she decided to make one last desperate attempt to break free. She veered off onto a narrow, less traveled road, hoping Aaron wouldn't follow. But as she turned the corner, she felt a sudden jolt. Aaron had swerved into her lane, forcing her off the road entirely. Her car slammed into a street sign before spinning out of control, finally crashing into a tree. Dazed and disoriented, Jenna struggled to regain her senses. She could hear the screech of tires behind her, and before she could react, Aaron's car sped away. Blood rushed to her head, and she felt a wave of nausea wash over her. Her phone had flown from the passenger seat, but she managed to reach for it, dialing 911 with shaking hands. The police arrived within minutes, but Aaron was nowhere to be found. They quickly classified the incident as an attempted hit and run. Jenna was taken to the hospital with minor injuries, scrapes, bruises, and a concussion, but nothing life-threatening. Despite the physical wounds, the emotional toll was far worse. The fear and realization that Aaron was willing to go this far left her shaken to her core. 2 days later, things took an even darker turn. Lucas, who had been trying to rebuild their fractured relationship, was found dead in their apartment, the victim of what initially appeared to be a botched burglary. The police didn't suspect foul play at first, but when Jenna learned of Lucas's death, she immediately felt a cold chill. It didn't take long for investigators to uncover the truth. Aaron had been the one to kill Lucas, unable to accept the rejection from Jenna. In his trial, Aaron claimed he had acted out of a desperate love for Jenna, and that his emotions had pushed him to extreme measures. His testimony shocked everyone in the courtroom, especially when it was revealed that he had been stalking Jenna for months, slowly unraveling as his obsession deepened. The police arrested him at a rundown motel, where they found some of Lucas's belongings in his possession. Jenna was left to pick up the pieces of a life torn apart by her choices. Aaron received a life sentence for his crimes, but for Jenna, the tragedy was far from over. She would never escape the guilt of what had happened, nor would she ever forget the darkness that had consumed Aaron's obsession with her. What had begun as an innocent office flirtation had ended in a nightmare she could never undo.